She sits in the courtroom with a stone-cold expression, hoping that the image of a beauty queen will save her. She has convinced herself that the jury will see reasonable doubt in the case. The defense paints her as a victim unfairly accused by investigators who rushed to judgment. Or maybe it was the father, drunk at the time. The defense strategy seems to be working. The jurors listen closely. But then prosecutors reveal what she was searching on Google: text messages, 5 different versions of what happened. And everything changes. What you are about to see is the moment when beauty queen Trinity Poague realizes that her excuses cannot stand up to the medical evidence. The exact instant when it hits her, she is not going back to college. Not this semester. Not for decades to come. The proof of what truly happened during those 35 minutes alone in a dorm room was scattered across police reports, hospital records, and Poague's own phone. This is the chilling case of a Miss Donaldsonville pageant winner who turned a college room into a crime scene. Every detail I am about to show you has been confirmed by courtroom testimony, medical examiner reports, and trial evidence. If you have never heard this story before, brace yourself. Because what happened at Southwestern Georgia State University on January 13, 2024, will challenge everything you thought you knew about jealousy, foster family dynamics, and how a smartphone's search history can expose even the most carefully constructed lie. On Poague's phone, investigators found something that became the key to understanding what unfolded that Sunday. Something she searched for while sitting in a hospital waiting room, something that completely shattered her claims of innocence. On Saturday morning, January 13, 2024, at Southwestern Georgia State University in Americus, Julian Williams and his girlfriend, Trinity Poague, went to her dorm room. With them was his 18-month-old son, Romeo Angelus. His father called him Jackson Drew. Most people knew him simply as JD. Surveillance cameras captured Williams's movements that day, footage that would later become critically important evidence. During a break from work, Poague's roommate stopped by the room. She saw the child. He looked completely normal, active, alert. The following day, Williams left for Walmart carrying trash bags. The plan was simple: pick up pizza and drinks for lunch. Surveillance footage shows him leaving the building at 11:55 in the morning. He left his son alone with his girlfriend. 35 minutes. That is how long Williams was gone. At 12:30, cameras recorded Williams rushing back. Poague had called him twice. She had sent urgent messages. When Williams returned, he found JD. He grabbed his son, ran to the car, and drove straight to the emergency department at Phoebe Sumter Medical Center. Dr. Michael Bussman was working in the emergency room that Sunday.
What was the child's condition at the time he first appeared at the ER?
So completely unresponsive.
Medical staff immediately began life-saving efforts, performing the procedures necessary to stabilize the child's condition. To transfer him to the Children's Hospital of Atlanta, clinicians began to notice certain details that required closer examination and further investigation. Dr. Bussman conducted an examination. 3 hours after arriving at the hospital, Romeo Angelus passed away. These medical findings would become central when compared with Poague's statements. The central question of the investigation became what happened during those 35 minutes when Trinity Poague was alone with JD. To understand the motive, investigators needed to take a closer look at who Trinity Poague was and what her true relationship with the child had been. In 2023, Trinity Poague was crowned Miss Donaldsonville at a local beauty pageant in Georgia, celebrating the win with grateful posts on Instagram. Later that fall, she competed at the National Peanut Festival, where she did not place but publicly expressed her faith. By January 2024, at 18 years old, she was a freshman at Southwestern Georgia State University, earning straight A's during her first semester, studying nursing, and participating in the President Jimmy Carter Leadership Program. She presented herself as a model of success and traditional values. She was dating 22-year-old Julian Williams, who had a son from a previous relationship. According to courtroom testimony, Trinity Poague wanted children and envisioned building a family with Williams. Prosecutors, however, argued that she wanted children of her own and had no interest in raising the child Williams already had.
Do you recall what her complaints were as it related to the child in terms of her relationship What was it that caused the complication in the relationship with the child being there?
Her not feeling like she could love JD as if it was her own kid.
Text messages uncovered during the investigation painted a very different picture, one that stood in sharp contrast to her public image as a beauty pageant contestant. Her conversations with her roommate, Paris Permort, began to reveal a hidden side of her personality that few had ever seen.
If you were going to describe their relationship as it was portrayed to you by Ms. Poague,
Yes.
and as you may have observed over time, if you were going to describe their relationship and summarize it in, say, 4 or 5 words, 2 or 3 words, how would you summarize their relationship?
Very rocky.
It appeared that tension was steadily building between Poague and her boyfriend. At the same time, her messages began to include disturbing comments about JD.
Is from who to who?
The first message is from Trinity to me.
Okay, and what did that message say?
It asks if you were up, says you up.
Right? And then you responded a few seconds later and said what?
Yes.
Okay. And then after you responded and said you were up, Ms. Poague sent another message. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that's the message that's at the top of page 114 of that printout.
Yes, sir.
What does that message say?
It says, why do I feel anger towards JD? Like earlier when we were in bed and JD kept touching Jay's face, I almost cried.
It appeared that tension was steadily building between those messages. She expressed negative feelings toward the child. A former dorm roommate, Megan Pitts, testified in court that the child often appeared distressed when Poague was around, in Poague and her boyfriend. At the same time, her messages began to include disturbing comments about JD.
That wasn't the first time that baby had woke you up crying, was it?
No, sir.
Actually, he cried a lot when he was there around Miss Poague, didn't he?
Yes, sir, every time.
Every time.
Yes, sir.
However, when someone else was present in the room, such as Poague's roommate, the child's behavior changed. He became noticeably calmer.
Better and was calmer if, like, her roommate or somebody else was there that could help, tend to him instead of her having to do it, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
But he responded better to other people than he did to her.
Yes, sir.
The night before, she'd heard crying.
I don't recall, but I remember being asleep and being woken up.
Okay, when you were sleeping, got awakened, what awakened you?
A baby crying.
Okay, was it, can you describe, I know baby crying is baby crying, I guess, but is there any way you can describe as far as volume or anything of that nature?
It was particularly loud considering I was across the hall.
Okay. Enough that it awakened you?
Yes, sir.
Now, after you heard the baby cry, was it just one cry, or was it baby crying, or what was going on?
It was continuous and then eventually stopped.
Okay. Do you know how long you heard the crying before it ceased?
I don't remember.
And was this in the middle of the night?
Yes, sir.
She also testified that she heard the child crying the night before.
The interview that I conducted with Ms. Poague on the January 14th, we were discussing some videos during my interview that she was showing me in her phone. And at that point, I realized there was evidence in her phone, so I seized it.
Okay. And then did you subsequently get a search warrant to permit you to, or permit the GBI to access the contents of the phone?
Yes, I did.
And after you got the search warrant for the phone, did someone, in fact, access the phone?
Yes, sir, we did.
There was one more message that prosecutors believed revealed Trinity Poague's true feelings, a text she sent to her roommate that weekend. According to testimony, the message read, "I'm stuck with JD." That word stuck, the prosecution argued, spoke volumes about her mindset, suggesting something very different from simply saying she was with the child or babysitting him. Although the prosecution's theory fully came together only at trial, the foundation had already been laid. Documented resentment, a child who appeared anxious in her presence, and possibly the jealousy of a young woman who wanted to be the center of her partner's attention. But investigators had more than messages suggesting motive. They had evidence pointing to consciousness of guilt data taken directly from Poague's own phone, created while she was sitting in the hospital as JD was dying. Investigators began questioning Trinity Poague at the hospital almost immediately, and that was when her story started to shift. Sumter County Coroner Mathis Wright testified about his conversations with Poague. Her initial explanation was that J.D. had been eating chips shortly before he lost consciousness.
30 p.m. on January 14th. Okay, all right. What were the web searches? What were the search terms that, or search phrases that Ms. Poague typed into her phone during about the 2:30 to 4 o'clock time frame? What were the messages that she typed in?
And then there were also some searches on how to deactivate Facebook.
And those occurred when you say searches related to infant brain bleeds, was infant brain bleed the search term?
I don't remember if that was exactly what it was, but I also noted that there were some that consisted of phrases.
Messages, search queries, and other digital data extracted from the phone painted a deeply disturbing picture. Agent Fort presented the jury with Poague's search history. Those searches were made on January 14th, 2024, while Poague was at the hospital and later at the police station.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's part of what you expect out of a babysitter, right? If something goes wrong, that they're going to recognize it. They're going to be in a position to do something about it, right?
Yes, sir.
You would expect her to take every reasonable measure to protect a child that was that needed protection, wouldn't you?
Yes, sir.
Then you would agree with me that that would be a gross failure on her part if she just did nothing, wouldn't you?
Yes, sir.
But there was something that ultimately shattered her defense. Prosecutors had videos from Poague's phone recorded the day before the tragedy. In that footage, J.D. appeared happy, active, and completely healthy. J.D. was fine when Williams left at 11:55 in the morning. During that window, the only person with him was Trinity Poague. The defense tried to find gaps in that timeline. They floated alternative theories, attempting to explain J.D. in other ways. But the prosecution had evidence that contradicted every one of their claims. The defense strategy was clear from the start: create reasonable doubt, offer alternative possibilities, suggest that the father could have been responsible. Defense attorney W.T. Tim Gamble III argued that Trinity Poague was a second victim, an innocent 18-year-old honor student accused of a crime she did not commit. Gamble insisted that Williams had been drinking the night before his son's death. Could the injuries have happened then? Maybe during morning routines? Or from a fall off the bed? The defense also argued that investigators should have examined the phones of the father and his relatives. They moved to have the case dismissed, claiming that information about the father's past had not been turned over to the defense. Judge W. James Sizemore Jr. denied the motion, citing the good faith work of law enforcement. Gamble called witnesses former employers of Trinity Poague, people who had trusted her with their children. They swore there had never been any issues, that she had shown no aggression. She had extensive experience working with children, Gamble emphasized. But then prosecutors began their cross-examination of those witnesses. Prosecutor Lewis Lamb asked one of them. The implication was unmistakable. If Poague truly had experience caring for children, she should have immediately recognized how serious JD's condition was.
She had him in her hands. It's like he's limp. I don't know what happened. So I threw the pizza, dropped it, and grabbed him and took off.
So she has him in her hands, and she said what?
I don't know what's wrong. He's limp.
He's not.
Like he was.
He recalled one disturbing incident from the past. He spoke about the phone calls, about the frantic drive to the hospital. Then he mentioned a detail that revealed the depth of his anguish.
How long was it between the first call, the one that hung up, and then the next call?
Maybe 30 seconds, 20, 30 seconds.
And when you got that call, did she say anything to you?
Yeah, I just heard JD, JD, JD. That's all I heard.
Okay, so she's calling, but she didn't actually say.
Yeah, I guess she was saying
something's up or whatever.
It just said JD, JD, JD. That's all I heard. Correct. It was all over my shirt. I still got a shirt at the house.
Well, the shirt you say he threw up on, correct?
Correct. Shirt and jacket.
Now that shirt and jacket, did the Georgia Bureau of Investigation take that shirt and jacket into evidence?
No, it's still sitting at the end of my bed, never been washed.
Recalling the messages that expressed hostility toward the child, Prosecutor Lewis Lamb stood before the jury after 5 days of testimony and a mountain of evidence. It was time to tie everything together. And Lamb reminded the jurors of the phrase, "I'm stuck with JD." That single line, he argued, perfectly captured Poague's attitude toward the child. She was not interested in becoming a stepmother, the prosecution said, but wanted a family only with Julian. According to Lamb, the source of tension in the relationship was Trinity's rejection of J.D. She was jealous of the attention Williams gave his son, his time, and his affection. An 18-year-old college student wanted to be the center of her boyfriend's world, and an 18-month-old child, the prosecutor argued, stood in the way of that. Lamb methodically addressed every theory raised by the defense. Could Williams have been responsible? He had been questioned for 4 hours. End quote. Could the injuries have happened during morning routines or from a fall the night before? Lamb pointed to the medical evidence, the roommate's testimony, and video showing a healthy child. He then laid out the prosecution's account of what happened during those 35 minutes. Prosecutors believed that Poague lost control when J.D. began crying after his father left, and that her pent-up resentment finally erupted. In his closing argument, defense attorney Gamble spoke of too many possibilities and the need for doubt. But Lamb had a response. The Google searches were the final stroke proof, according to the prosecution, that Trinity knew exactly what she had done to JD and was searching for a way to explain it away. The jury had everything before them: expert opinions, video of a healthy child, shifting statements, Google searches, and messages filled with resentment. Judge Sizemore instructed the jury. Deliberations began. Nearly 3 hours passed as jurors weighed the evidence across 6 charges. The judge took his seat once more. Word came in. A verdict had been reached.
Poague, if you would please stand. The verdict reads as follows as to each count. On count 1, it says, "We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty."
Poague visibly flinched and broke down in tears. Relief washed over her face. She had been acquitted on the most serious charge, the one requiring proof of intent. But then the remaining verdicts were read. On counts 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, guilty, 5 guilty verdicts. Less than an hour later, the court reconvened for sentencing.
On counts 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, the verdict reads, "We, the jury, find the defendant guilty."
The defense requested that the sentences be served concurrently rather than consecutively, a decision that would allow for the possibility of parole in the future. The judge granted that request. The sentence included life in prison for murder.
All right, Ms. Poague, if you'll stand up, please. I don't do a lot of speaking when I'm passing the sentence. I've heard the case, and I've considered the tragedy on the left side, on my left side, and on the right side, and there's a lot of tragedy to go around here. The whole time that I'm hearing a case, I think about what the appropriate sentence would be. And this conduct all led, in my opinion, to the offense of felony murder. Even the charge that, would have merged with count 3, but does not because count 3 is vacated by count 2. That's a lot of technical jargon. But the bottom line is you're going to receive a sentence of life in prison, which is the appropriate sentence for the conduct that you have been convicted of. And that is going to essentially be the sentence that the court passes in this case. You will be sent on, so on count 2, I sentenced the defendant to serve life in prison. And on count 6, I sentenced the defendant to serve 20 years in the state penitentiary. Those sentences will run concurrent.
Trinity Poague was stripped of her Miss Donaldsonville title immediately after her arrest. Her path from college honor student to convicted murderer took less than a year. She is now serving a life sentence. Her attorneys have stated their intention to appeal to the Georgia Supreme Court. However, the case against her rests on medical evidence, messages expressing hostility, and her own search history. Whether her actions were the result of a sudden loss of control or something more deliberate is a question the evidence never definitively answered. Romeo Angeles would have turned 3 years old this year. Trinity Poague will not be eligible for release before the year 2054, when she will be 50 years old. And the surveillance cameras from January 13th, 2024, still preserve the footage showing Julian Williams leaving the dormitory and returning 35 minutes later.
That you can, in your older days, have some sort of life after serving this sentence, and life while you're in prison. I guess you just have to make the best of it. But that's the sentence of the court. I wish everybody the best.
This case leaves behind more questions than answers, and a silence that no verdict can truly fill. A family was shattered, and a young woman's carefully constructed image collapsed under the weight of evidence she never expected to surface. Whether this was a moment of uncontrolled rage or something darker and more calculated may never be fully resolved. What is clear is this: the truth was pieced together not from a single confession, but from timelines, medical science, digital footprints, and the quiet details people often overlook. Now we want to hear from you. Do you believe justice was served in this case? Do you think the sentence fits the evidence, or should it have been different? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters. If you found this story important, disturbing, or thought-provoking, please support the channel by liking this video and subscribing. We cover real cases, real evidence, and the moments that reveal what people are truly capable of. Check out our other videos for more in-depth investigations, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Take care of yourselves, stay aware, and remember, the truth often hides in plain sight.